everybody. Welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast. This is our On Friendship episode for June. This is where we talk about a film, usually on Hallmark Channel, but not this time, that we talk about it from from a perspective of friendship and relationships. And it's really fun. And film critic Rachel Wagner and Alysa Lucas is here.
Hello.
Hey. And today we are doing something a little bit different. We're talking about a film that I saw at Sundance that I really, really enjoyed. And I had told Alysa about it way back in January when I saw it.
You texted me like immediately. You were like, together, put it on your list. And I was like, yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Because this film, Together, is a film all about platonic friendship and a really wonderful relationship. And so I thought it would be really fun to talk about. And it is an R-rated film, so our conversation will be PG-13. But if that isn't your jam, we have so many other podcasts you can listen to. But just the movie is rated R for mild language, and it's not a hard R by any means, but there we go. But yes, so Together, it tells the story of a man played by Ed Helms who has decided to have a child through surrogacy, and that he hires, or I don't know what's the proper word. He chooses a woman, named Anna, to be the surrogate for his child. And it's about their relationship and their friendship and their experiences. And I just really, really enjoyed it. It's written and directed by Nicole Beckwith, and I thought she did a very good job. And before we dive into the nitty gritty, what overall did you think about this movie?
I could have cried from happiness that there is a movie that takes on a type of story that we don't see very frequently, and that is surrogacy. And certainly that we don't see from the point of view of a man wanting to have a baby through surrogacy without a partner. And so I just enjoyed it from beginning to end and was just so pleased that we had, when you said platonic friendships, it was like legit. It wasn't something like, and at the end, we're going to pull the rug out from underneath you and then they're going to be married forever.
Right.
So I just, as someone who has always loved and respected and appreciated friendships, that I felt like this is a movie that I obviously didn't know about and I didn't know that I needed, but filled so many voids and checked so many boxes for me. So this is a high recommendation for me. I know we do that at the end, but I'm just going to say from the start, I don't know if there's anything bad I need to say or have to say about it.
Yeah.
But I will be gushing, so be prepared for that.
Good. I'm so glad. It's always a little bit of a risk when you go, when you're picking something a little bit experimental, a little bit different, that will your friend like it? And you're like, please like it. And then you're like, yes, you like it. Yay.
Well, we've also had the experience on Friendship with that Blythe Danner movie that did not turn out well. And the thing about it is, though, we still had a fun conversation. And here's the thing, I'll never forget it. And I'll never let you forget that you made me watch it.
At least in this case, I had seen it twice.
Yes. Okay,
so whereas
fair.
that case, I hadn't seen it. So I was really taking a shot in the dark. Darn it all, you let me down.
I love Blythe Danner. That was the only sunspot in that movie.
Well, it had an incredible cast.
Yeah.
But it was not great. So it starts out with the two of them questioning each other. There's the sort of questionnaire, and we find out that she has had a child that she gave up for adoption.
Yeah.
And we find out that he is doing this alone. We get introduced to his character, and I just really loved some of the dialogue in this scene, that she says, that it appeals to me because you're doing this alone. I don't think
Mhm.
being alone is a bad thing.
Mhm.
And that was definitely something that connects with me, is that the a little bit later on he talks about how he feels like all of his friends have kind of his settled friends have moved on,
Mhm.
and he I feel sad for what I want and don't have, but then when I hang out with my single friends, I feel sad for what I have and don't want. And
Yeah.
I totally connect with that.
Yeah, I think one of the things is that they're both alone in various ways, and that for me, I think that when people see people alone, there's kind of like like it's pity, or he even says like, I don't want people to see me as like hopeless when I'm so
Mhm.
hopeful about having this baby. That is, it's a family, it's what he wants. He just happens to be alone and doing the thing that he wants to do. And I think that a lot of times people assume that those are alone, or there's something deficient about them or dysfunctional. And just because someone is alone doesn't mean they're lonely. And Kelly Clarkson tells us that in one of her songs, but it's also but it's one of those things that someone who is married and has kids and friends and all these people can feel lonely. Like, we can all feel lonely. And I think the difference in this particular sort of conversation is that she's okay with it,
Mhm.
and he's becoming okay with it
Yeah.
because he wants to focus on the things that he wants. I from If I can put on my little nerd teacher hat for just a second, I was like, oh my god, we're starting this movie with an interviewing scene. I teach interviewing. And then it moves to the next thing, and I'm like, oh my god, it's about conversations. I teach about conversation. Like, so the whole thing, I was like, okay, this might have to be required viewing for my relational classes.
Yeah,
So
the Nicole Beckwith, the writer and director, she did such a great job of just making everything feel authentic and natural. And I mean, I could feel like this is how this would go down and what these characters would say and do. And
mhm.
it,
I
it
think I think it's interesting. Like, I didn't know, even though there's credits and stuff, I wasn't paying attention. Right? I did
yeah.
see something about Kindred Spirit, and I was like, oh, is that someone's movie, like film company or whatever, at the
Hmm.
beginning? And I was like, oh, I love Kindred Spirits, obviously. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know that it was written and directed by a woman, but you saying that makes sense. And
Hmm.
without opening that whole can of worms, in which we can discuss at another time, I just think that that makes sense for why
Yeah.
this feels
Yeah.
authentic. I think that one of the reasons why we need more female directors and writers, there's so many stories to tell. And when women are not able to be in the positions to create those stories in media, that is a loss to all of us as an audience, right? And so that makes me even happier with this movie because, again, what sort of story, we don't get the surrogacy story, or the girl who already had a baby and her family is mad at her for getting pregnant. They're mad at her for giving the baby up for adoption. They seem to be mad at her for her existence, essentially. And then you have someone who's like, things didn't work out. And these are stories that I resonate with me, and I want to hear more. And so I
Yeah.
sure hope that we get more of these kinds of stories.
No, I think it's true. And I also think that they don't glamorize loneliness either. You know what I'm saying? That
Yeah.
like it is hard to be alone.
Hmm.
That's not at least it certainly can be. And I think that we like it is unnatural to like human nature desires companionship,
Yeah, we
right?
need connection.
Yeah, connection, companionship. And so you don't have to be sort of brave all the time about
Hmm.
being alone. And it's okay to be sad about
Hmm.
being alone. And I think that there's a bunch of moments in this where the way they explore their relationship and the way they talk about their their struggles, I think feels very real and authentic and something I definitely connect with as a single woman.
And I think that my feelings might be the same, but from a slightly different point of view. Like, you can be sad about loneliness. We're all going to experience loneliness at some times, whether we're
Mhm.
together or not. And then it's okay to be alone as well, because there's other ways to connect.
Mhm.
Besides, that's one of the things, like, I feel very strongly that in our society, and there's nothing wrong if you want the societal path that is sort of placed on us, which is you are going towards marriage and then having kids, family, etc. And there's nothing wrong with it, but there's nothing wrong with not following that path either. And so for
Mhm.
me, this movie really sort of highlighted, like, follow your own path, whatever that
Mhm.
might be. Whatever
Yeah.
that might be. And that's okay. And it
Well,
is
and
okay to be happy, sad. I mean, we're humans. We should be experiencing our
yeah.
emotions and dealing with them, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like her coworker at the
That
coffee thing that he says you're together, you may not be together, hence the name of the movie,
yeah.
but you have something going on here. And I think that that's really a kind of a true thing, that
Yeah.
we may not have a traditional relationship, but we
Mhm.
do have connection.
Yeah, and I apologize for, like, the high laughter, but what a character. That
Yeah,
he
it was
was
really funny.
a trip. Don't name the baby Jessie. Why not? I know a Jessie that doesn't know tumble dry low. What is it? Tumble dry low?
Yeah.
Like, totally random, but he's so serious. Do not name this baby Jessie. I don't know. He
He was really
was
funny.
so funny.
I agree. He was very, very good.
I don't remember what his
Uh,
name was, but he
uh,
was every scene he was in, I was cracking up.
Jules, his name is Jules, played by Julio Torres, and he is very funny. He did a great
Yeah,
job.
he was great. If you do decide to check this movie out, hopefully you'll go in and you'll be able to appreciate his small but powerful performance.
Yeah, he
You
was very
know.
good. Very good. Uh, so they have this conversation over dinner, and he asks her, "What's the worst thing you've ever done?" And I just thought that whole conversation was really well done, and
Mhm.
uh, and then at the end, she asks him, "What's the worst thing you've ever done?"
They're like, none of your business. But I love it because it starts out very in the first interview to determine whether or not they're going to work together on this
Hmm.
project, like it's a workplace
Yeah.
project. But, and then each time they meet, there's like more questions that come up, and these like it makes sense. Like, it's almost like when they're at that dinner and they're asking the questions, it's almost like they're on a first date, but they're not
Hmm.
dating.
Right.
And, friends have those moments too, the first time you hang out, so but one of my favorite parts, I think she says, "Are you nervous?" And he's like, "I'm nervous about being a dad, but I'm more nervous about making conversations with the person who's carrying my baby."
Yeah.
So sort of talking about, that having conversations can be difficult, right? And
Yeah.
that it's not a comfortable situation for people, but it's something that we have to do. It's a skill we should probably have, making those connections, especially if we want friends, partners, and relationships with coworkers and such. But I just cracked up at that. I wrote that down and I was like, I'm definitely talking about that in class.
Yeah, well, and so she says that she tells him that she placed baby for adoption when she was in high school.
Hmm.
And at first he's a little bit like, "Oh, I don't know about that," but she makes like such a good point that if she had already gone through an experience like that with her child,
Hmm.
that how much would she be able to like emotionally deal with doing something like that for not even her child.
Yeah, I thought that was like a really, like, if we're talking about persuasive communication, because she's going to
Mhm.
get paid for this. That's typically what happens with the surrogate, right? For
Legally, I think you have to pay them.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
I
I
think.
don't that's the other thing. I'm like, tell me more about surrogacy. This is interesting. But I think that's a really good point, because I'm sure parents all the time are concerned that they're going to change their mind. And that is a very natural and fair fear to have. And I think for him that sort of says like, she's already done this, so I won't have to be concerned about
Mhm.
that. I can take that fear off my list of fears. And
Yeah.
I think that's what sort of starts to make it like a good connection for him for the
Yeah.
surrogacy.
Well, and they obviously show that they have a contract later on when he's being kind of difficult, and because obviously you would have to go through all the proper channels with this because you're dealing with,
Mhm.
his his child, like,
Yes.
and with donor, of course. And so it has to be done legally and everything, and they show that that's the case without, because it would be boring, going through all the legal paperwork. But yeah, then they
But that's a great moment because, she's, been with a guy since they started the surrogacy, and he's like, "I don't know about that." And then they go through all the things like that she can't do. She can't, like, all these no skydiving, no, and it's like
yeah.
goes on for pages, and then it's like no Vespas/scooters, like, just, like, things that are like, "Are you serious?" But
Well,
I
yeah.
think that starts to show that he is very concerned about this, that maybe he's, uh, what's a polite way of saying wound a little too tight? And
Yeah,
she's sort of
he starts out a little needy, and which is
and
understandable.
controlling.
When Yeah, controlling, the whole thing when he brings the clogs in, I always think that is so funny.
She should wear these clogs that Jules is like, "Ew, whose clogs are
Yeah,
those?"
that's
No
right.
one's. And then he keep and bringing pregnancy tea and just, so it's like one of those things like he's trying to control, what she's eating and who she spends time with, essentially with
Mhm.
that moment I just talked about, what she can do. And I think like it makes her a little uncomfortable, but I don't think that's her personality style. And what's really neat is the scene that we see shortly there later is that they learn that she's going to go to school with the money that she didn't get
Mhm.
to finish school. She finds out that he created a loaner app, which is hilarious. So he makes
Yeah.
apps, and the loaner app is not like Tinder or Bumble or the other ones where you swipe left or right. It's just like you can just see the people. You just look at them. You don't
Yeah.
actually have to talk
Would
to
you wanna
them.
sign up for this app?
It's hilarious. I love it. I was like, that's hysterical because it's like, and you can put someone on your favorites list, and then it's like you can see them all the time. I'm like, isn't that just scrolling through like Twitter or Facebook? But what basically happens is she comes over and he takes her to the baby's room. And what you discover is that he has swatches where he's going to decide on the paint of the baby room, but
Mhm.
he has every color option of swatch on the wall.
Yeah.
And then he has a book about
Yeah,
what
the
all the
book.
colors mean. And he's like, but it was in the baby section. And so she's like, this is basically bonkers. Like, what are we doing? But she stays. They narrow it down to sort of green shades. And then she helps him narrow it down. And then when he decides on a color, he immediately picks up the book and it means impractical and idealistic, which is hilarious. Because you're like, what about orange, which is joy, or, yellow is intellect, or whatever. And she
Yeah.
just knocks the book out of his hands. And so I think that what you see here is that friends can be honest with each other.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that you help each other through things, and that not only that is that they have something that is really important in common, and that might be being alone, but that they're very different otherwise. And that, maybe she starts drinking that pregnancy tea, maybe he starts to relax a little bit. And I thought that was a really cool scene. And I thought all the swatches, as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh my god, why do you have a red swatch for a baby's room? Like, come on, buddy. But I just thought it
Yeah.
was a really
Like, they both
great.
become better from having been friends with each other and had this
Yeah.
experience, and I think that's, like, the best that you can kind of hope for in life is
Mhm.
that these, the because all of our experiences are unique, like, nobody's the same, and, so that we can make each other better from our interactions with each other, and you can definitely see that with both of them,
Mhm.
and they have a little bit of time where he gets kind of hurt and offended when she when they're at a baby store with this they're buying a crib, and when the attendant says, "Oh, you'll be so happy with it," and she says, "Ew," and
He's not my partner, yeah.
yeah, and, she kind of explains that you're 20 years older than me, and it would be weird. And he kind of struggles with that at first, and then he gets it, and they understand. And so they kind of I feel like that's this way of the movie kind of telling you that this is not a traditional love story
Mhm. Yeah.
when they do that. And one thing that's interesting about this movie that I actually didn't know until I'd seen it twice, that I found out that the actress Patty Harrison, who plays Anna,
Mhm.
she's actually transgendered, which I think is really interesting. I had
Yeah,
no idea.
she's a trans woman, and I think
Yep.
what that indicates is that, a lot of times people assume trans individuals are so different when they're just those folks
Yeah.
living among us, right? Just like everyone else. And I think that's really neat in the sense that there's more representation. And
hmm
so
When she was the perfect person to play this role, like
she
it
was
did not
great.
matter at all.
No. No,
No.
and that's the point is, like, most people won't know that she is, and it's fine, and if you know she is, that's fine too, and, like, that's a really cool thing for those that are
hmm
who are trans women who are struggling to see, like, "Hey, here's someone else I know who might be like me," and I
Yeah.
think that's really cool.
Yeah.
And
I do too.
I also thought that Ed Helms as Matt was just delightful.
Yeah.
I thought he was just like you really felt that this is what he wanted in life. And, I don't know. I just thought they together, I can't imagine anyone else being casted in this movie after seeing it.
Yeah, really, and they had a nice chemistry together. You really felt like they were friends. It was I absolutely loved the casting
Mhm.
in this movie. Even the smaller parts I thought really worked. Like we talked
Jules,
about Jules, and we talked about, like, I liked his parents. I thought they
his
were really
mom,
nice.
Adele.
Yeah.
Maybe you shouldn't talk.
Yeah. She was really good. Nora Dunn is always hilarious, and I think she does. I really liked radiation tech. She was
Yeah,
really funny.
Jean.
Yeah, it was really
It's a
good.
pleasure as always. I don't know if she meant that. What does Anna say? I don't
It's
know if
just
she's really rude or she's amazing. And he said, I don't think we were a pleasure. She goes, yeah, she's amazing.
yeah,
But
right.
it's interesting because when you go through this process, there are a number of things that you will go through, right? So you see them go to what I assume is therapy together. You see them
Yeah.
go to separate support groups. You see them go to the technician and then to see the doctor. So there's several scenes with Jean, although we never
Mhm.
really see the doctor until, showtime. Um,
Yeah.
but, and then you
That's true, and
have,
they go to Lamaze.
yeah, wait, okay, hold on. I
Yeah.
have to find it in my notes because I was like, this is the most ridiculous thing ever. The Koala House Birth Center for Learning and Feeling, and the leader was Shailene. And it was sort of like, I mean, it might be like stereotypical, like hippy dippy sort of like type of class, but it was like a new spin on it, I thought, because I think we get that a lot. Like these people are like, oh, the breathing and the, and she's like, and he's like, I'm Matt and this is my baby. And who's your partner? She's a surrogate. And where's the third partner? I'm doing it alone. And then Shailene is like, she has to do all this breathing. she's like, She's like, I'm really trying to work through the fact that there isn't a third partner. And I'm like, sometimes people are so rude. Like, and then afterwards, another couple comes up, you're so brave. And it's like,
Yeah.
here's the thing, there's an expectation that relationships are always supposed to be exactly like this thing. And the person who came up and said it was so brave was a lesbian couple, which we are like, that's traditional now in a way, like and that the surrogate is not. And it's like, can't we just welcome all in? Like, seriously, they just
Mhm.
want to breathe, but then afterwards, I don't think they wanted to be there. it
Yeah.
was it was not their cup of tea, that's for sure. But I think the person I disliked the most, and really Matt's mom Adele should have been number one, was Shailene. The
Yeah.
actress was great, but I was like, the koala.
I
How
didn't even notice that, so that's good. I've seen
I
it 3
had
times.
to I had to
That's good.
rewind it because I was like, what is this called? This is silly gooses, right? But again, it
I
was just like another moment of like this sort of genius way of bringing it in. And then
Yeah, making
there's
it
all
feel
these
real,
yeah,
because that would
and
happen.
then there's all these moments of going to, as you mentioned, going shopping for the crib and going shopping, and where she runs into her sister's friend, and sort of her family then finds out that she's no longer with her previous partner, and that this friend tells the family that she's pregnant, and then her mom leaves like a nasty call. So they have that shopping together, but like this disappointment together. And then there's a baby shower, which, can we talk about the baby shower? I'm
Yeah,
sure
we
you
will, and
have
just
a plan of action that I have just
yeah.
ruined
No,
because
you're fine. I
because
do
I
wanna
love
talk
this
about that
movie.
very much. I wanna talk about it very
Yeah.
much, but I just wanna say when they're talking, then she says, "Why are you alone?" And he
Oh
says,
yes.
"Because I'm alone. I'm in
Yes.
this chapter of my life that feels like it should be over, but it's not." And I
Mhm.
totally relate to that
Yeah, that
because
was one of my favorite scenes. So tell me how
Mhm.
you relate to it, and then I'll tell you how I relate to it, and then people
Well,
at home
the
will
thing
be thinking
is
about how they relate to it.
the thing is that I feel like sometimes I know I'm not, but I feel like sometimes I'm the same person that I was in my 20s and now I'm 40.
Yeah.
And there's something about I think getting a partner and having a family that feels like such a distinct life change,
Yeah.
right? Whereas like my life isn't that different from when I was 20.
Mhm.
Like I'm pretty much still once I graduated from college, aside from like starting the podcast, there are things that
Yeah.
are different. I have a home now, things like that. But for the most part, I'm not that different as opposed to
Mhm.
like say my sister who's 2 years younger. She has three children,
Mhm.
and her oldest is going to be a senior coming up, which is
Oh,
blows my
wow.
mind.
Yeah.
Um, and like her life is radically different from when she was in her 20s, and I don't know, like there's just something about that is hard, and I do think that sometimes people keep you in that spot of your 20s even though you're an adult, like not that you're not an
Mhm.
adult when you're but like I do feel like sometimes people don't allow you to grow
Yeah.
when you're single.
Oh, yeah.
um
For
and
sure.
and so you are kind of always in this sort of infantile kind of state of like I don't know, it's just
No,
I just related to this idea of like I'm alone. I'm in this chapter of my life that feels like it should be over, but it's not. And there's nothing you can do about it. And it's
yeah.
frustrating. And you're like, you want to be strong, but everybody has weak moments too, where you do feel sad and you
Mhm.
wish that you had what other people have and
Yeah.
you wish you had love. And he talks about I'm just on a loop.
Yeah.
And I really related to that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree because I would say I've joked before, like my growth was stunted at 25.
Yeah.
Like, and that there's a lot of ways that I've changed, but there's a lot of ways that it's staying precisely the same. And even thinking about incorporating a relationship into my life, I look around my house and I'm like, assuming that person is moving in here, I'm like, where's he gonna put his stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, but I watch TV all day. Does he wanna watch what I wanna watch? Like, having been single that long, I'm like, "I'm pretty set. You're gonna have to fight with Finn for the other side of the bed. I don't know what you're
I
gonna do,"
know.
right?
Yeah.
Like, so there's some of that where it's like, there are things, where I might be sitting at home and people are posting about, like, their kid's first day of school, and I'm like, eating my ice cream, watching my stories. Well, and that means TV, not
Mhm.
specifically like soap operas, but one of the things is that it feels like once people graduate high school, our society treats single folks as if there's nothing to celebrate in their life until they are engaged or have a baby or both. And
Mhm.
so that was one of the reasons why I like the baby shower, which I still like to put a pin in it because you brought up a scene that's really important where they talk about she asked, why are you alone? Because I am. And you mentioned this earlier. He says, settled friends, I'm sad for what I want, I don't have. And my single friends, I'm sad for what I have and I don't want. And that really struck me in some of the things that I talk about in classes about we're always trying to determine how we're doing in life in comparison to other people. And it's hard not to just focus on ourselves, right? I think there are
Mhm.
people who struggle with that more than others, especially with social media and things like that. But I also think that it indicated to him, like, does he want to stay in this loop and be sad either way, thinking about single friends or settled friends, or does he just want to move forward? And he makes that decision to move forward so we can stop the loop. And that might be in determining what we want in life, which might be different for him. He wants children. I'm like, I think that shop over here has closed.
Mhm.
Like, so talking about myself
Yeah, me too.
specifically, right? Like I'm like, because I think they would call it a geriatric pregnancy, and I'm like, well, that's rude, um, because I'm not that old. But for me, I've never wanted necessarily, like, I've never really thought about having children, so that's me. And that's the thing, is being able to recognize what we each individually want, which might be different than our settled or our single friends or whoever else.
Mhm.
And I think that's really cool that he makes the decision because, again, he is a single man doing a surrogacy, which, people, you don't typically see that happening. It might happen a lot more, but we certainly don't hear these stories. But what I also like, if I can, is sort of her side of it when he turns it around and he says,
Yeah.
"Why is she alone?" And I mentioned this before. Family was mad when I was pregnant. The family was mad when the baby went away. And she says, I miss the family I had when I was 10. And what's interesting
Mhm.
with how it ends is like his conclusion, because he had a partner for 8 years where he thought it might have happened. And he says, it just didn't work out. So then she talked about her family. And then she says back to him, sometimes things don't work out. And I
Mhm.
think that with family, we should assume that everything is always going to work out, even if it is toxic or not good for us.
Mhm.
And that romantic relationships, they don't always work out. Friendships don't always work out too. But what I love here, and if I can just have like a celebratory moment of victory, that in between things not working out with romantic relationships and not working out with the family, what we have is friendship. And we
Yeah,
never have
that's
that. And I
right.
was like, yes.
And she says that I missed them before we stopped talking,
Yeah.
which I thought was a
Yeah.
really
That's
strong moment.
powerful. That's
Yeah.
really powerful, saying,
Yeah.
like, I wish you were the way you were when I was 10, not when I was 16,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, because I mean, not every family is peaches and lollipops. Like sometimes it's hard and you
Yeah.
struggle and you have to give yourself the space, and that's painful. I
Yeah.
mean, having a basically like a divorce from your family, I can't even imagine. I mean, I'm I think I'm close with. How do I say it? I think that I have good relationships with everybody in my family.
Mhm.
I wouldn't say that we're like super friendly, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
we're just really different. I am very different from everybody in my family. I mean, my parents and I are very, very close, but my siblings, we're just all really, really different. And so we all
Yeah.
respect each other and we have a good
Yeah.
time together and we're fine. There's nothing wrong with it. And so, it's, I can only imagine, even with that little bit of my experience, what it would be like if you had true discord and
Yeah.
a true
Yeah.
severing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because every piece of information that we gather about her family from her and through the interaction with the sister's friend at the store and the
Yeah.
voice message from the mother is that they don't seem to like and respect each other at all. And they are just horribly
Yeah.
offended that she became pregnant when she was 16, where it's sort of like, move on, that was 8 years ago, right? Like, she's still your daughter. And so she doesn't seem to get along with everyone, and it just seems like she's going through something. And again, she gets sort of like this nasty voicemail from her mother. And
Well, and
so, and I
I
think
feel like the mother didn't. I don't know if the mother is cognizant of the fact that it's having that effect. Like, it seemed like to me that that she is kind of. I mean, it's still only this little bit, but seemed like a lack of maybe self awareness on her part, because she's
that's really unfortunate, because you've pushed your daughter away and you're
yeah.
never going to have a relationship, because it just is so. Is there anything else you'd like to tell me? I'll I'll even, what does she say, something like, I won't pretend to be surprised. Like, to me that's saying, like, you know that I know, but also
Hmm.
I already know that you got pregnant before, so I know you're going to get pregnant again by not this partner you were with, and somehow that ended. It just felt like layers of
Yeah.
just nastiness, and I was like, I can see why Anna's like, no thanks. and and Matt had his family, but boy, there was some stuff there too. And
Yeah, it's challenging. It is challenging. And so they decide to name the baby Lamp, uh, because they don't like calling it. And
gender neutral.
they pick a gender neutral name. And that was, I thought, really fun.
Oh my god. Yeah, they went through several
Radio.
radio, peanut, like there was some options. I think they could have kept going, but they landed on Lamp.
Yeah, yeah. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast.
From the author of Miracles and Menorahs comes a story about history, responsibility for it, and how true love can change the future.
History of Us is the second book in Stacey Agdern's Friendship and Festivals series.
Available on June 24th from Thule Publishing and wherever books are sold.
For more information about Stacey, visit her website at www.staceyagdern.com.
That's staceyagdern.com.
Have the scene in the where they run into her sister's friend, and I really liked after that scene when he tells her, "You have also helped to create two families," and
Mm.
she is almost like she never really realized that until he said it,
Mm-hmm.
which
Yeah.
was yeah, I think that's true to a lot of things in life, that we don't realize the excellence of our own experience. You
Oh,
know.
that's a nice way to say it.
Hmm. Yeah, and so that was a neat moment, I thought, for her character, for her to realize that, and uh, and then next is when we get the "Don't name your kid Jesse."
But that was also a great scene, because it seems like, because at the beginning Anna didn't want to tell anyone about the surrogacy or about Matt and that sort of thing, even though he's around. And so she starts to bring Jules into it, and she's like, have you met? And Matt says, Not officially, but we've exchanged several cold stares. And then it's like this really long cold stare, and then it's like, don't name the baby Jesse.
Yeah. uh, and then we get they decide to not know the sex of the baby, and just because she wants to be Switzerland, she wants to stay neutral and not get too emotionally tied.
Yeah.
And that's when they say, I can't tell if she's rude or amazing.
Yeah.
With amazing.
Oh, Jean. Jean was a good side character too.
So do you know who Dr. Honeydew is?
No. I was like, man, we're like the same age, similar in age, and I was like, of all the Muppet characters, I was like, when he said honeydew, I thought he meant like a honey-do list. Like
I know because I love the Muppets, and I had just done Muppet May, just finished Muppet May.
Fun.
And which I do every year. So I knew Dr. Honeydew, but that was, I thought, really cute and funny. And this is when they're becoming closer and closer and closer. And she actually stays over. They're watching Friends together. And then she has to kind of explain to him why they can't move to that next level. Like, you get the feeling like maybe he's starting to kind of have a crush on her a little bit, but then it's kind of,
I never felt that.
Quickly, I felt like if she had allowed it to go there, then he would have gone there, but then it's quickly kind of not, and then he's okay with it.
I don't even have anything like that in my notes
because
at
they
all.
have that whole Woody Allen discussion, and she says, how many friends in their 20s do you have?
Well, I think it's because I felt like he felt more offended by the age difference than anything. I guess I didn't gather that. Hey, what do I know? I've been single forever.
I felt like then he realizes that, okay, that's not going there at all, and then
I thought his discovery was that Woody Allen was gross.
Because she talks about Annie Hall and Manhattan. I felt like he was, that was the kind of the I felt like it was an important scene for the movie because it just kind of lets you know that this is not going to be a romantic relationship.
It's a boundary line drawn, but
yeah.
But apparently,
maybe
I need
crush
to rewatch
is too
it.
strong a word, but
yeah,
I felt like, I do feel like if she had wanted it to go there, then he would have probably been up for it.
Gotcha. Okay, I'll go back and rewatch, and then maybe I can tweet about it after it comes out.
Okay,
because
maybe.
I was too like, oh my god, Woody Allen.
Yeah.
Our brains go to different places, I get. Right?
And this is when we get the scene where she makes him explain how to use a tampon.
I love this because, like, at first I was like, does she not know what a period is? And then it's like, no. And then later, in sort of like a montage scene, you also see him braiding her hair. And so I just love it because she's being sure he has these moments, if it's a girl, that he can help his daughter. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, that is so cool. And
she kind of she realizes that, because she tells them, I'm going to be at school, you're going to be busy with Lamp, and like they're not going to have this, like, I'm sure they'll keep in touch, but they're not going to have this like intense friendship that they have now.
Yeah.
That she needs to do whatever she can to help him in this moment of time, because it's fleeting, and that's sometimes that's the case with friendship.
Well, but it's also, like, friends are give us everything that we might need, or everything that we can give to other people at a certain time, and then it might dissipate and come back at a later point or whatever. But I love her method of like teaching, because he's like talking about it. She's like, don't whisper it.
Yeah.
Like, you gotta be strong because it's gonna make the child feel ashamed. And then she's like, are you embarrassed? And he's like, yeah. She's like, then you'll never forget this. Because he's like, how am I supposed to remember this for 12 years? You don't forget things that embarrassed you. And And typically, what I know about embarrassment, which is little in terms of emotion, isn't my area that I study, but
Mhm.
embarrassment is when you rethink of something that was embarrassing, you can have similar levels of feelings. Like you can feel embarrassed again. So anytime he thinks about the period is probably like face palm, you know?
Yeah, it's true. And and that he's gonna have to he's gonna have to do it all,
Yes.
that
Hmm.
as far as teaching this child. And so I think it was a real gift that she gave him to be s- to be strong and to not have to rely on other people
Yep.
to it's something that he's going to have to do. So I think it was really cool for
I loved it too, and I just think that at the same time, I'm like, he's doing it alone. But sometimes there's two dads, there's two moms, there's a mom and a dad. I think nevertheless, people should be learning these things. So in
right.
say a father-mother relationship with the child, it shouldn't just be like the mom's gonna talk about that. Because what if mom isn't around when the daughter has her period? Or what if something happens to
Right.
mom?
That's true.
Like, I don't think it should just be like, oh, I can't talk about periods. No, you should be able to do it. Maybe your daughter isn't comfortable doing so. That's up to her. But I still think that everyone should be informed. Like,
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool for him, but I was also like, I think my dad should know about periods. Now he probably doesn't care because I'm in my 40s,
Well,
but
and
like,
there's just so many parts of parenting that are awkward and uncomfortable, whether
yeah,
it's toilet training or
get in there
like,
though.
you gotta do it.
Roll up your
Uh,
sleeves and get in there. Get involved.
yeah. So then she has a really great conversation with Jules where he he says this is where he says just because you're not together doesn't mean
Yeah.
you haven't created a bond that will end. And sort of that's when they kind of realize that where she sort of realizes that they're going to have to, in a sense, break up.
Yeah.
They have this sort of super intense relationship, and then that's not going to be forever. That there is going to be this platonic breakup, and I just thought it was really funny when she's like, "Oh, I just gave him a podcast."
Oh, that was my favorite part because Jules is like, I feel like you're creating a straight man in there. She goes,
Yeah,
I just gave him a podcast. And
yeah,
I hit pause and laughed for like half a minute because
yeah.
I was like, that was
Hilarious.
perfection.
Yeah,
That is
it's
some good
really funny.
writing.
Yeah. And the thing I thought was interesting about this baby shower, so there's this
Ah,
long baby shower
finally
sequence,
we get
and
to talk about the
I know
baby shower.
is that the thing is that so none of these people, aside from his parents, briefly, have been any part of this whole experience that we've seen, at least,
Mm-mm. Nope.
right? And so these are all his quote unquote friends, but
Yeah.
none of them are people that are going to be a support network as far as the raising of this child. And aside from maybe his parents.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's so true in life, that's a kind of a hard thing, is that I mean, if I were in this situation, I would be able to get a pretty good party together of a bunch of really
Mm-hmm.
great people who I love very
Yeah.
much. But are most of those people going to be there when my baby has colic and I need help and I'm,
Yeah.
whatever, like probably not. And that's kind
Yeah.
of sad, but it's true. And because they have their own lives and their own stresses and their own, like, there's just not that many people in most of our lives that are like true support people that are,
Yeah.
that we can, I don't know if that,
To me,
eh,
it feels like, we follow this path, you get married, you have kids, and then maybe the single friends kind of get put aside or they're not the most important thing. And I realize you're tired. I hear parents don't get sleep, that there's a lot of crying and pooping and stuff in the middle of the night.
yeah,
And like, I'm not a parent, but I know what y'all do is hard. And so friendship isn't going to be the most important thing, or that we as perhaps a society hasn't welcomed that. And so it's one of those things, like, if this is your, let's say there's a couple having a baby, and her best friend is someone who's always been a part of her life. Why can't it be a moment that the friend is a part of, right? And
Yeah. And I think that there are those friends.
but I do
But
think that we need to focus more on it, because it is more of going back on sort of the generic, it takes a village. It takes not a village to raise children. It takes a village to live life,
yeah.
right? And to experience life. And sort of what I gathered is, and I don't think it's by any intent of, say, his married friends or his friends that have kids, or as what he calls his settled friends, but it certainly seems like he's been brushed aside. And
Mhm.
so they can't be there through all these moments, but they can be there for this big event. And
Yeah.
that was something I saw on Twitter. Like, do you want people only to be at big events, or do you want them to be there throughout the smaller things? Who are those friends that you want to be at all of those
Mhm.
events, whether small or big?
Yeah.
Um, but I do think, yeah, it changes. There's transitions, but friendship, I don't think is something that when people hit, 30 until, their partners start passing away in their 70s or 80s, there isn't like a 30 or 40-year gap in friendship. We need friendship throughout our life. And
Mhm.
and I just recently did an episode. I don't ever do this, so Rachel, I hope you don't mind, but I recently did an episode where I talked about what life would be like if friendship was considered to be the most important relationship. And so
Mhm.
that's what's got me thinking
Mm.
about it. And
Yeah.
like, ish, the friend should be there. And it's like, Alysa, you're in your episode of what life would
Mhm.
be like if friendship was the most important. Doesn't mean marriage and romantic relationships don't exist. It means we don't give up our friends for our romantic relationships,
Yeah.
So
And you have different seasons in life, and I understand
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But it just made me want to be a better, more supportive friend.
Yes,
And
always
yeah,
love it.
yeah. So she decides that they need to kind of have this sort of breakup, and
Oh,
she tells them that they need to set better boundaries, and in order for this to work, we shouldn't be friends.
well,
And
but she does that after the baby shower,
yeah, after
and
the baby
I still
shower.
have a thought about the baby shower. I'm so
Okay.
sorry.
It's
Okay.
okay.
I've been waiting.
Okay.
I've never wanted to say something so badly. I thought for him, because this leads right into what you're saying, Rachel. For him, that baby shower was complete joy. Him opening the presents. Oh, he got
Mhm.
like what looked like his old childhood bunny. He got like a thing to like a bouncy chair, and just like having all these things. There's never moments for single people like this. Like, do how often do single people have these events besides maybe like a 30th or 40th birthday party?
Yeah.
There
Which
aren't these moments that we
yeah.
celebrate friends. And so it was so beautiful to see it. But for her, it was a reminder that she's not going to be a part of this. And that's when she's like, if we're going to do this, we can't be friends. And so I just thought that that scene was so critical,
Mhm.
because he's so happy. Like, he's going to have the baby that he wants. All of his friends and family, whether they've been part of the process or not, are there. And it's just like becoming more and more real for him. And then he's like, let's go get pizza and watch Friends. And that's when she's like, no, we can't do this anymore, being together as friends. And so that's when we then move into the conflict portion of the movie.
Mhm. Yeah. It's true. I mean, I was thinking about that last year because I had big plans for my 40th birthday.
Hmm.
Of I wanted to go on a cruise and all
Ah,
this stuff with my family, but obviously the pandemic had other plans, and
boo.
we did end up having a fun time. We did a murder mystery party
Ooh,
via
fun.
Zoom, and so we had a lot of fun. But yeah, it's true about that sort of moments of celebration. And I was actually talking to somebody. I was doing an interview with an author named Stacey Agdern, and we were talking, and she said, "In many ways, you are what you celebrate." And I thought that was a really interesting. She was talking about Hanukkah and how important it was to her, and I thought that was a really interesting idea. that I think that's part of what's been so hard about this last year is that we haven't been able to have those celebrations
Mhm.
that are
Absolutely.
so part of like our culture and what we eat and
Yeah.
what we do and
When friends come together, you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
Oh,
So
sad.
it's true, and hopefully I'll be able to somehow get my cruise in one of these days. But
Yeah.
uh,
My thing is I wanna go to Prince Edward Island where Anne of Green Gables is
oh,
filmed,
that's your
so
big dream.
that's my dream.
Nice, nice.
Yes, beautiful.
So then she goes into pre-labor, and uh, then she says, "I never pictured us being friends. All the pamphlets about separating from the baby say nothing about separating from the dad." So
Mm.
it's really cute.
But I
And
love how she's like, "In my group, they tell us not to do it," and he's like, "In our group, they tell us to do it." So they're
yeah,
getting, like, competing advice
right.
and information, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, life, it's always it sometimes it can just never be easy,"
Yeah.
right?
Well, and she says, "I love you in a normal way, in a boring way. Don't ruin it."
Yeah. Well, and he says, "I love you too," by the way.
yeah.
And I think what's great is that we do see this where they have to be separated, but it's not really working for them, right? Like she finds out that she got into the college that she wanted to, and she picks up her phone and she immediately wants to call him, and then she doesn't. But then when she goes into the pre-labor and they have this moment, it's sort of like they realize they can't do this without being friends. And I think like then she tells him that she got into college, and he is so excited for her like
Yeah.
a friend would be. And I was like, "Oh, I just love everything about this movie."
Yeah, it's really, really, really sweet. And I think that they come to such a great place between the two of them and when they're holding hands and eating candy
That's their
and
moments of
yeah,
intimacy, yeah.
holding hands, eat
And
candy, and
and
continue not sleeping
watching
together.
watching and crying through Friends, that they
Yeah.
completed the whole series together.
Yes.
Which I was
And
like, "Bro, there's other TV shows to watch, but fine. You're the Friends age group, buddy."
I love when she actually does go into labor and she says, "You're supposed to be encouraging me. I don't believe anything you're saying."
That's the
That's
thing, there's, like,
really
some
funny.
moments where the snarkiness is total friendship, that if perhaps unless you have that snarky relationship with a romantic partner, that would not fly. Like it might fly if she's in labor because she's in labor, but like you're not going to like knock the color book out of his hands because he wants to know what the green means. You're not going to be like, "I don't believe anything you say," without maybe it being a little problematic. And this was just sort of like how friends sort of razz each other, and
Yeah.
I love it.
It was really funny. I enjoyed it too. And so then she has the baby and we hit our ending, which is just a
Spoilers coming up.
yeah, there is no real ending. It's just sort of a black screen. Like we never get to see the baby and we never
Wait.
How did you feel about that?
Okay, well, first off, it ends with him saying, as she's doing the like pushing the baby
The
out,
push, yeah.
"You're so amazing." And she says, "I'm so happy for you." And we have this uh shot of her laying in bed, and she's crying probably because of exertion. She's probably crying because
Mm,
she's tired, but she's probably also crying because like she's happy for her friend, but she might also be crying for herself because this is not her baby. And what is their friendship going to be like after this? And as she is by herself after going through this whole thing, and he's been there the whole time, but one of the things that you don't think about is that as he then moves to the child, she needs some sort of a support. Is there a nurse or someone else that could have been there? So I kind of felt bad. Like I was like, as she sits there in tears, she is listening to him going, laughing like with joy and welcome to the world and all of these sorts of things. And it's really
mhm.
this juxtaposition between maybe some sadness and some happiness. And I
Yeah.
do think that she's happy for him, but they're definitely experiencing two different things at that time, two sides of the coin, if you will.
Right.
And then it just goes to black. And then I was like, okay, we're going to fade up and we're going to learn about Lamp's new name. And we're going to see them being friends, watching maybe another sitcom about friends. I don't know, Happy Endings, How I Met Your Mother, New
No,
Girl,
not that one.
something. Yeah, well, I mean, but then there was nothing. And so I was like, at first I was like, no, I want to know. I have two questions. What is the baby's name? Because if it's still Lamp, you should be sued. And two, I want to know what happens with their friendship. But otherwise, like, so part of me is like, well, that was a rude ending. But then I also get it. Like, that they've gone through the process here. This is the moment.
I could have used one scene with him holding the baby, and I mean, I understand why they did what they did, and but there's also sort of my my need for closure that kind of wishes there'd been one scene. But I get it. It was an interesting ending, but yeah, it's kind of that's the end of this part of the story. That's it's over.
I smell a sequel.
I would be very curious, honestly. Like,
oh my God. How cute would
love
that
to
be?
see. Yeah, I would love to see her going to school and how that turns out. I would love to see him raising the baby and how that all works. And I mean, yeah, I would be up for it.
Yeah, I love it because like all the ups and downs of like college and like babies and toddlers. Oh my God, great.
Yeah.
There's also play date. There's so many things that you can go through. The park, play dates. I mean, oh my goodness. Time to start scripting, ladies.
Nicole, if you're listening, call us.
Yes, please do.
So that is the end of the movie, and I had some comments from Twitter. I asked if anybody had any thoughts about the film. And my friend Shut Up Matt on Twitter, he says,
Shut up, Matt.
says, I like it a lot. I think Patty Harrison pretty much makes the film, and I love how quietly progressive her presence in that role is. It lets her play to her comedic strengths, but also dig into some good dramatic work. And I'm not crazy about the ending, though. I wanted an epilogue. Yeah, I kind of did want an epilogue too, if I'm honest, but it's interesting. So first showing, he says, really heartwarming, uplifting film. The two main performances are so good and exactly what make it work so well. Ed Helms knew exactly what to do with his role. And then Arnold at the movies, he says that the beauty of Together is seeing Matt and Anna's bond form and bloom through this platonic angle, capturing what it means to be human. This experience will help Anna afford to go to college, earning a degree she's always wanted, while also gifting Matt with a child he has always wanted. Together is a sweet and joyful film that sticks with you long after the credits end.
Yes. Wait, who was that? Because I keep remembering Shut Up, Matt. Sorry.
This is Arnold _ at movies.
Okay, Arnold, nice.
Yeah, very
Love
well done. Very well done. So I just think it's a really sweet movie. I think it's one that I've seen it 3 times, and every time I feel like I understand the characters a little bit more, I understand what's going on, and I just really connected with it because of I don't know, me being a single woman and kind of that both characters had things about it that I could really relate to. And so I really enjoyed it. And if people are open to it, I think that they will also really enjoy it and should check it out.
Yeah, I thought it was an absolute delight, and I think I'm going to push hard on the friendship thing. That's why I'm here on friendship, right?
That's right.
That, I always say I came out of my mom's womb looking for friends. So this is like almost 43 years in the making of a movie that tells stories that we need to hear, whether we're single or not. I think it's important to understanding other people's stories, and it's just joy and awkwardness and funny and just happiness. And are we doing crowns today? What are we doing? Okay.
Let's do stars. 5 out of 5 stars. What would you give it?
I'm giving it a 5 star. I
Good.
did it. I went there.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly compared to what we typically review, then it's I mean, I gave it an 8 out of 10 on Rotten Tomatoes, but
What? No, just kidding. I'm just
and
kidding.
a fresh score.
Yeah.
But I would give it like a 4.5. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, it's I mean, I guess maybe I might have done the ending different, but
Yeah.
for the most
I
part, I really love
understand
it.
it. But also like know that those of you listening that Rachel's been hyping this movie to me since January, and I
Yeah.
watched it. I always like to watch the movies right before we record. It's sort
Yeah.
of like the experience and then coming right in like with my true thoughts and feelings. And maybe it could have been improved by a cookie crawl, but other than that, I just loved it.
It
and
was so
and
good.
and it's probably accurately more a 4.5, but because of the friendship story, the
Yeah.
writing, and Jules, I give it the extra point
Yay!
5.
I'm so glad.
Don't name the baby Jesse.
Oh, don't get that, Jesse. Very good. Well, let us know if you've seen this movie. Let us know what you think. I think it is available to rent on all the major platforms. It's not on a
Yes.
streaming service just yet, but definitely worth your investment of a rental and something I think you'll enjoy. So we'll put a link down to an affiliate link on Amazon if we can get that in the description. So check that out. And Lisa, where can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm friends with Alysa now, as I've talked about in previous episodes. So I merged the social medias for my 3 podcasts. So you can find me on Facebook and Instagram, the webpage, Gmail, Patreon as Friends with Alysa. On Twitter, it's Friends W Alysa because Twitter had to be difficult. And then my personal Twitter is Dr. Alysa Lucas. I want to hear what you think about Together and all the things that we talked about, baby showers and talking about periods and everything. I want to know everything.
Yes. Let us know. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. Check that out. I'm going to be covering the Tribeca Film Festival this next week. So
Woo!
that's going to be really fun. So make sure you're checking that out. And also make sure you're following us at Hallmarkies Pod, Hallmarkies Podcast, all of our social media. And if you're listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. We really need those for all of our podcasts, not just Hallmarkies. But then if you are listening on YouTube, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We sure appreciate that. And then we also have our Patreon group, which has some amazing perks. Like last
Mm-hmm.
month, we got to talk to Lacey Chabert, which
Oh,
was amazing.
oh,
So it's only $2 and you get to participate in everything we do. So what are you waiting for? Please sign up for the Patreon.
amazing.
And then we also have our merch store, which has tons of fun designs. So please take a look at that. And thanks so much, Elise. This is always so much fun. I'm glad we finally
Yes.
got to do this after all the talking.
I know, since January.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I can't wait to see what we're watching next. Let's hope it's a little bit more together and a little less whatever that Blythe Danner movie was.
Okay, yeah.
I
Okay.
still love you, Blythe.
Okay. Bye, everyone.